Hey guys, welcome back to carbuyer.com.sg. Today we're going to review the Mercedes-Benz GLB, the smallest 7-seat SUV from Mercedes. You're going to find out what we like about it, what we don't like about it, and what it's like to drive in Singapore. Now, first and foremost, if you're wondering what the GLB is, we actually have a video that introduces the car, and that was taken at the car's international launch last year. Feels like a very long time ago. We got a video link for you right here. Check that out before you continue. But today we are going to focus on the GLB, how it is to drive and what it's like in Singapore. And the first thing that you should know about the GLB is that it's the biggest, smallest Merc. What does that mean? Well, Mercedes has a new range of small cars that have come out only in the past decade or so. A-Class, B-Class, C-Class, CLA, GLA, and now GLB. So the GLB actually is quite a large car. And unlike the GLA, it actually has quite a lot of the DNA from the G-Wagon. G stands for G-Wagon, of course, and it's used in model names to indicate SUV. So Mercedes actually has a lot of SUVs now. And you see how tall the car is from the side view. Look at the boxy shape, the tall windows, a lot more reminiscent of the GLE, which is the car 2 sizes up from this car. And that is also a 7-seat SUV. Look around the back as well, very, very square. And in terms of size, it's actually significantly larger than the GLA, its smaller brother. And if you've read our story about the GLA, you realize that that car, in fact, has gone away from the whole coupe SUV thing towards a proper SUV. And if you look at the styling on the GLB, I think it's even more of a real SUV, a lot more of the crossover, a lot less of the crossover influence, a lot more of the actual 4x4 influence as well. And the good thing about, being tall and boxy is that this pays a lot of dividends in terms of practicality as well as the day-to-day driving, which we'll get into right away. Okay, now we're going to try and get into the back of the GLB. See if I sprain my ass or not. Feet slide forward. Not bad, not bad. Hands begin. Oh, that wasn't actually too bad. Alright, so we are in the third row. Haha. Okay, so adjust the seat back first. Ow. So they weren't kidding about the 1.68 meters thing. I am about 1.72, 1.73. And if I don't sit up straight, there is like, I don't know, 2 fingers here. If I sit up straight, I'm gonna hit the headliner, because actually the roof does come down a little bit. I think that's for crash strength safety. This is the whole frame right here. So probably a safer option there. Okay, now look downwards. Here I have a little armrest. I have a little USB-C port here, and a little cubby hole for handphone or whatever. So I'm an adult, I think, and pretty much comfort is okay. If there was someone sitting next to me, I think we probably wouldn't rub shoulders unless they were, a bodybuilder or something like that. So the takeaway here is that you can actually still fit 7 adults in the GLB with some shifting around. But I want to draw your attention to maybe a caveat here as well. There isn't a huge amount of legroom, of course, naturally, and in a small MPV like say a Volkswagen Touran, there will be even less. But I can still fit my feet here. But one problem is that the adjustable rails for the second row get in the way of my feet. So I can't put my feet here. Well, I can, but it's not comfortable. I'll be sticking at an angle. I could put it over here, but you can't really close your legs. And on the right side, the rail here also fouls that. So you kind of have to keep your feet together if you're sitting in this seat. Not such a problem on the left seat. See what I mean? Yeah, bit of tricky angle, but you can see what I mean. So I can sit relatively normally here, but over there I would have to put my feet together. And also take note that there are no aircon vents here. A USB-C port, yes, but there's no aircon vents. There isn't even an aircon vent in the second row, so aircon only comes from the front, which is not too good in a 7-seater. Alright, so we've established that the GLB has quite a lot of space. We also should mention that the boot is pretty big as well, thanks to the square design. Like we said, tall, boxy shape means lots of interior space, so you can fold down the seats for quite a lot of room. And having a tall roof also means that it would be able to swallow bulky items pretty well. There is also a automatic tailgate, which is also very useful for loading stuff in daily life. But now let's look at the cockpit, and I'm not going to repeat myself because if you've seen all of our Mercedes reviews in recent years, well, recent year, they pretty much all look like this. This is the dual screen 10.25-inch infotainment system. Then there's the driver active instrument display. There's also Mercedes MBUX, who likes to interrupt you all the time.
What do you want to do?
I want you to keep quiet, Mercedes, because every time I say Mercedes, you appear and you interrupt me. Ha! No answer for that, do ya? Okay, anyway, so as usual, you can customize this. This left thing is for adjusting this, right? And this left pad, sorry, this left pad is right pad. This left pad is for adjusting the infotainment display on your left. I'm scrolling through it right here. Scroll. Also another touchpad down there. Focus, you idiot. Focus. Okay, there we go. Focus. There is also a smartphone charger. And of course, this car does not have navigation, but at least it does have Android Auto. So a nice cabin layout, very premium feeling as usual. Good material choice. These things light up in a fancy manner. So again, we've covered all this before in other cars, like our review of the C-Class and all that, so we're not going to repeat ourselves, but instead I'm going to focus on the negatives here. So there are positives, you just have to find out from the other videos, but here are some of the negatives we found about this cabin. First and foremost, there are a lot of reflections because there's lots of screen. So anytime you drive, you can see your fingers. You can probably see my camera here as well. Put my fingers here, you can see it in daytime. The brighter it is, the more reflections there are, so that's not so good. These touchpads look cool, but I prefer a tactile button instead. Sometimes I don't know if I actually have, and when you're driving along, you don't want to have to look down here and diddle it again. Same thing with this one. Same thing with the touchpad down here as well. But overall, it's a slick looking cabin, and I think that is what people really look for. Of course, the nitty gritty details, whether or not you can live with them, it's all up to you in the end. Okay, now we're going to cover how the GLB drives, and from behind the wheel, this car is decent, but not super impressive. And the GLB 200, which is the base model and probably the model that everybody would get, because the other model is the 35 AMG 2-liter, 230,000 plus, so that's probably not going to be the mainstream one. Obviously, it's going to be this one, which is about 180 grand. So this car, like the A200 and the B200, has a 1.33 liter turbocharged engine, 163 horsepower, 7-speed gearbox, dual clutch. And on the road, here's the downside of the big boxy styling. There is more noise, especially out on the highway. You can hear more tire noise, you can hear more wind noise. Compared to, say, the GLA, it's a little bit noisier. And also the handling isn't quite as neat and tidy. Though keep in mind that the GLA isn't a very good handling car to begin with. Okay, so tall vehicle means tall center of gravity. So there's when you go around corners, there's not much feedback. The steering itself is quite a lot, quite a bit of a dead zone. Obviously, if you buy this car, 7-seat SUV, big, chunky, you're not gonna expect A35, A45 levels of performance, but you should adjust your expectations accordingly. And what we said about the whole G-Wagon thing is that car obviously is a very capable off-roader, big fat luxury SUV, and also not so sharp on the road. The GLB is a little bit like that. I would say if the GLA has 5% of the G-Wagon's DNA, the GLB has at least 15 to 20%, simply because it's not so it doesn't feel like a super tidy, neat handling. Handles just like a car, kind of SUV feeling. Now it's not bad, and there are good points to it as well. So if you have a tall SUV, high seating position, big windows like this, driving is easy because you can see whatever you need to see. You can look at the bonnet, you can park easily, it's more maneuverable, as well as easy to drive in town. And talking about driving in town, the 1.33 litre engine is turbocharged, it's quite efficient. So despite this being quite a big vehicle, I got about 8 litres per 100 kilometers in mixed city and highway driving. On the highway you probably get about 5 point something, which is pretty good for a tall, heavy vehicle that can fit 7 people. So pretty good. So there are pros and cons to the GLB right here. Okay, so hopefully by now you guys have a pretty good idea of what the GLB is like in Singapore, and if it seems like we're harping on a lot of negative points in this review, that is on purpose. Our actual takeaway, our actual conclusion about the car is that it's pretty good for the money. But there are also certain negative points to keep in mind. And I realized also that this car is already a good seller for Mercedes by nature of what it is. It's the least expensive 7-seat car for Mercedes. It's the second least expensive SUV. You combine those two things together in Singapore, you have plus it's a Mercedes, you have the potential for a very popular car. Now obviously quite a few people ran out and waved their checkbooks at Mercedes when this came out, because I mean, who doesn't want to? SUVs are all the rage nowadays. 7-seat cars are very, very popular in Singapore because cars are so damn expensive here. So having a 7-seat car is a good and flexible and obvious thing to do. So we just wanted to look at more of the nitty gritty, more of the the last 10% that isn't so nice in the end. And that was, what we just talked about, the driving experience, some parts of the interior, reflective, not that nice to use. It looks nice, but a bit finicky. The rear right seat has a bit of a foot issue, and there's no aircon in the back. But I dare say most people can live with those things. And so 180 grand for a car like this is still not cheap. Of course, cars will never be cheap in Singapore, let's be clear on that fact. But for what it is pretty much the only car in the class. Luxury, kind of small, mid-sized SUV, premium brand. 180 grand, there is nothing else out there on the market that does this at this price level. If you wanted a luxury SUV with 7 seats, you would have to go up one level. Not just up to the X3 GLC kind of segment, but beyond that, X5, GLE, Lexus RX L kind of cars. If you want a 7-seat SUV, you can go down a level to the mainstream continental cars like the Peugeot 5008. There is also, let's see what else is there. There's also the Mazda CX-8. We have a review for that as well. Check that out. And also cars like the Mazda CX-9. A lot cheaper would be Mitsubishi Outlander. So you would be getting into mainstream territory there. But at the current level, at the current size, at the current price, there is nothing quite like the GLB here. Alright, so that wraps up our review of the Mercedes-Benz GLB. If you like this video and found it interesting, useful, please share it, like it, leave some comments. What did we miss out? What do you want to see next time in our reviews and so on. So stay tuned, car buyer. See you guys.